Hey, hello, you folks, and welcome to Kelly's Chronicles, my channel where I sit down with people who are living everyday lives and listen to their extraordinary stories hidden behind normal, quiet existences. Because here we believe that those lives are the most important and need to be acknowledged, heard, and celebrated as to not be forgotten by the passage of time. Hope you all had a wonderful week. We had a really great week over here. We got a little tiny bit of snow this morning with some ice. Nothing too crazy, but it did shut down the town. So, so people down here in the South do not like the snow. We don't like the snow down here. So it did shut down all of Arab. So we're just kind of recovering from that. It's sunny outside now, so all the snow and the ice has melted away. And Danny and I did sign a lease. We are going to be opening up a restaurant and bar here pretty soon, hopefully the beginning of March. So we signed a lease on that. We're really excited, but ready to get started on the construction on that. So how was your week, Dad? How have you been? Heard you
Oh,
had a
just
birthday.
pretty good. I did. I have a birthday the day before yesterday. I was 79, and I am just still in awe that I'm still here. I should have departed this mortal coil a long time ago, and here I am at 79, which is the average age for death for American males. And I'm gonna beat the crap out of that.
That's right. You're yeah,
I'm a
cheers.
Mormon. I'm gonna live 8 more years. I mean, come on.
You're supposed to live to be 120.
Yeah,
Come
well,
on.
that's I'll live 8 more years. Then at that point,
Yeah.
well, now I'm 84. Let's see, or what I'd be. Yeah, 87. I'm 87, so I'm going for 97, and then 107. So I got to do it in steps. I can't just like
Okay.
I got because I'm
Okay.
not there yet. I'm just 79. But it was wonderful. I had a great time. We went out with the calls and had steak dinner, and they paid
Yeah.
for it, which was great. It was quite a bit of money, but they paid for that, and
Had a good
I got
time.
presents from all over, and got stuff mailed in and on email, Amazon, lots of greetings and gifts, and it was wonderful. Yeah, and I
That's awesome.
down at the temple, it was like everybody give me a rough time, hey old man, so that's like a lot of times like a fraternity down there. These guys hanging around with all the guys. It's
Yeah.
great. I love it. And
Um,
yeah, so
we sent you a
another
home.
milestone. What?
Yeah, definitely. We sent you a phone, a belt
Yes.
loop phone case because you always put your
Yep.
phone in your shirt pockets, and Mom's like, he's always dropping his phone. So we got you the belt loop it's leather, it's made out of calfskin, and I bought it
Yes.
from somebody on
Very
Etsy.
nice. Very nice. Came in a beautiful box, and it smells
Ooh,
like
yeah,
fresh
that's
leather. It
handmade.
smells good.
Yeah,
I almost want to just like smell the case.
just smell it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
had
I
it.
got various things, some gift cards and stuff, and it was a good thing. I'm happy that I made it this
That's
far.
great.
It was Saturday's a lot of fun. Like I said, down with the
That's
fraternity down here at the temple, and everybody messing with me. So
yeah, and we
I enjoy that. I'm a good. I guess you'd call me a good sport. I don't people. I got
yeah.
I got a rhinoceros hide. You spend 26 years in the military, and you better have a
Yeah,
rhinoceros hide. You're going to
it
be
bothers you.
in an insane asylum because
Facts.
they are
Facts.
unrelenting. Anything that makes you stand out for any reason, they're on it. They're on it.
And that's a good way to live life, I think. And I think when we open up this restaurant and bar, I think it's more like kind of have to have a very humorous personality, kind of mixed with a little bit of Southern sweet tea to make things just work. 'Cause these people are just down here in Arab are just good old hometown Southern folk, and you don't want to
Oh yeah.
be a complete jerk, and tell them, get out of here, never come back again. You just gonna be like, hey, go sleep it off and come back tomorrow. We got to do a video chat with all of us kiddos. So that was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
and
I got to see all of us
that
siblings.
made my day right there,
Ye-
was getting to
Yeah,
see all 4 of my wonderful children, and seeing that their lives are in order, and
Mhm.
they're prosperous, and
Yeah.
they're in a good place. All of them are in a good place, and I couldn't be prouder of them. They're just
No.
a wonderful, wonderful kid, and I'm just blessed to have uh, these incredible human beings with my genes in them somewhere.
Somewhere. At least half. At least half. I don't know. My
Yeah,
mom was like, "You know what? I'm taking 60%. 60% genes in my kids." And you're like, "Wait a minute. That doesn't
yeah,
work that way." Like, "No, 60%." You're like,
yeah.
Can we at least wheel and deal?"
So you
So
definitely have your mom in you. There's no doubt about
oh,
that.
yeah. Oh,
She's
yeah.
such a sweet person, and you people
Oh,
are
she's
just there. You just take after a lot of your personality is because of your mom, and a lot of the things your
amazing.
industrialness and hard work ethic is because of your mom. Because I basically am
Oh.
a lazy slob, and
Whatever. Oh my gosh, that is a lie. That is a lie.
yeah, I would if I had my own if I was just like not a member and of the church or anything, I'd be sitting down a wheel in a rocking chair somewhere with a beer and a cigarette. No,
Maybe.
not
I don't
really.
know. I don't
I probably would have straightened myself out. I probably would have
know.
said, "You can't be doing this anymore, Chuck. You're gonna kill yourself. Stop it."
Yeah.
I probably would have.
Yeah.
That would have probably been just the threat of early death would have been my
Lingering around.
driving force because my dad died an early death at
It's okay.
69 because he lived in secondhand smoke for
Yeah.
years, and he had
I think
COPD and a heart murmur that was caused
yeah.
heart disease and disease is caused 99% of it by smoking. Well, I mean, not 99%, but 99% of the time, if you're a smoker or around secondhand smoke, you will have heart disease and COPD. And
And
he did. So,
that's when people
yeah,
don't realize when they smoke and people get around it, their habit is killing other people. It's affecting
right.
other people. It
Yep.
hurts their kids and their families, and that's one of the reasons why our restaurant and bar is 0 cigarette smoke inside, because I can't handle it. But after probably about an hour of being in it, my throat starts to close, and I can't even sing
Yep.
anymore, and, that's the whole point of hanging out at a karaoke place and hanging out in a place where you would sing, if you don't smoke, it starts to clog your throat up. So,
Mm,
secondhand smoke killed my grandfather because of somebody else's bad habit.
right.
So,
I'm going to take that and I'm going to get over into my transition from the progressive, beautiful place that I lived in Wisconsin into Arkansas.
it's time
And
to move to Arkansas.
I don't really want to do this.
I know you've been putting it off. You're just like, no, I still
Uh,
have more stories in Wisconsin.
we
Like,
don't have to
we
go to
have to,
Arkansas.
we have to
Well, I
go
tell
to
you,
Arkansas soon.
yeah,
We have to
no,
transition over into that part of your life for us to continue on with the rest of your life. So we gotta keep going here. We are gonna go from Wisconsin down to Arkansas. So how about you tell us how old you were, what grade you were in, what year it was, and the reason why your dad decided to move to Arkansas of all places. How would you go ahead and get started into that from there?
okay. Now, in 1969 or 1963, my dad was due to reenlist. It reached the end of his tenure. You reenlist usually for 4 or 6 years. They don't let you reenlist for 10 years or 1 year. You usually have to go in a 4 or 6 year cycle. And he was at the end of his 4 year cycle, and he went in for it, and you have to have a physical when you reenlist. So he went into the reenlistment physical, and the doctor says, "Sergeant Olson, you have a heart murmur so bad that I can almost hear it without my stethoscope." He was only about 5'7", and he weighed over 200 pounds. So they sent him to Scott Air Force Base in East St. Louis, and they put him on a 1,000-calorie a day diet, and he lost almost it must have been close to 100 pounds. I'm not sure how
Whoa.
much exactly it was, but he came back. He was up there for, like, months. I mean, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, month. He was just gone, and, really kind of a bad thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
they put him on a 1,000-calorie a day diet and made him lose his weight, and he got down he took off a lot of weight, and he looked terrible, and, his clothes didn't fit or anything, so the Air Force said, "Well, we've, made you lose the weight, but it hasn't done any good. You still have a heart murmur, and you have some respiratory problems too." And so dad said, "Well, okay, but I wanna put in my 20 years." And so he wrote a letter because they were gonna kick him out, like, boom, like, within weeks, they're gonna discharge him. And he wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Air Force, and he said, "Look, I'm a World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War veteran. I want to put in my 20 years." He said, "I don't wanna get out at 19. I wanna have 20 years in the military, and,
Yeah.
is there any way I can have that done?" And they sent back, "No, you're gonna be immediately discharged." And the reason for that is if you die on active duty, you get double the money and advantages of a person who's retired. If you die when you're
Yeah.
retired, you're basically they cut off your pension, that's about it. You die in active duty, you're a hero or something. It's a whole different thing, and that's one reason why they said, "No, you're medically discharged right now, boom." So they got he came out of the Air Force with 19 years, 11 months, and 20 days. It wouldn't give him that extra 10 days 'cause they're afraid he was gonna die on it.
Hey.
And so dad was, I think, kind of anticipating this, and he had started looking around a little bit for places to live, and when he was finally discharged, now we still had the trailer. We had the 10 by 46 trailer that we'd bought back
Mhm.
in the, late '50s, and, we moved that we picked up and, mom did her usual thing. She knew what to do, and she put everything
Yeah.
on the floor,
Plates on.
and, we contracted out a mover, and they pulled the trailer down to somewhere in Missouri, and,
Okay.
uh, and dad went or the I get we all went down. There's only 3 of us, so the whole
Yeah.
family went down to
Oh, nightmare.
down to Poplar Bluff, Missouri, which is over in southeastern Missouri, pretty close to the Mississippi River. It's only, I think, less than 100
Is that
miles.
close to Cape Girardeau?
It's west of Cape Girardeau,
Oh, okay.
and we went over there, and he found a 40-acre farm with a nice little house, little, shotgun house, and, a pretty good location. It's only a couple miles out of town on the Black River, and we were all set at I walked the fence line with dad. I remember doing
Oh,
that. All around that 40 acres and looked at how much fencing we had and how many trees there were and everything, and doing the regular farmer thing. And I was ready to move part Bluff for Bluff. Okay, I got a college, I got Southeastern Missouri State, I have a VA hospital, everything that would make a good place for me and the
sounds like a
family to
great
live.
place.
Okay, dad was, we were fixing to settle down.
Okay.
Then dad went to town, and Poplar Bluff was
This doesn't
full
sound like
of
it's gonna go anywhere good.
yeah, it was full of black people, and
Oh, no.
dad said, "No, no, hell no." And he said, "We're not gonna," and he immediately put this place on the market and sold it right away. It gets sold right away because it was a good price. And he didn't really wanna
Yeah.
make any money. He just wanted to get the heck out of Poplar Bluff. And so I think he started looking around. We went down to Eureka Springs in Arkansas, and we went to, Springfield, Missouri, and we went to
Yeah.
Joplin, Missouri, and we went to Springdale, Arkansas. And dad just really he liked
You
that.
like
He liked being in Northwest Arkansas because at the time, it was very inexpensive. There was no Walmart. This was pre-Walmart, and,
Yeah.
It was just a nice place to live, and, it was also an enclave of white supremacy, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
There was they had parades in Rogers, Arkansas, which is right next to
Mm.
Springdale. They had parades in Rogers where the, American
Yeah.
Nazi Party and the Ku Klux Klan would come out and march up and down the street, and I'm not saying dad wanted to join them, but he appreciated the white power thing or whatever. He did not
Wow.
he was I'd went over before his difficulties with
Yes,
black.
we've talked
Yeah.
about why he was racist and the reasons, and
Yeah, and I
I
wouldn't
mean,
say
he
he
had
was racist. I wouldn't say that's kind of a strong thing. I
it is
wouldn't
a
say he
strong
was
word.
racist. I think that he just wanted to be left alone. He didn't want any
I
blacks
understand that.
around. He wanted to be just left to live out the remainder of his life in peace and safety. He didn't think that the blacks were a good thing to have around his family and his neighborhood. So and that's not necessarily racist. I don't think he disliked him. I think he just didn't feel comfortable around him. He didn't he
Well, if
grew
you
up
have
in
bad
eastern
experiences,
he grew up in
yeah.
eastern Colorado, and there are no blacks there.
Yeah, back then,
And,
no, that was all urban.
Germans and Swedes and
Yeah.
Norwegian, they just weren't there, and that's what he wanted. He
Mhm.
wanted to have what he had when he was a kid and what he had in the military until he got
I
to
understand that.
Wisconsin. He wasn't the military back then just was very, very few blacks, and he didn't
Yeah.
I really don't think he understood their culture,
Yeah.
their
I understand that.
mindset, and I think it was just like a foreign person,
Like,
"What?"
different
He
culture that he wasn't.
just didn't and he don't wanna be around it. So he
Yeah.
got the trailer. I'm not sure where the trailer was, but he got the trailer, moved to Springdale, and we moved to a little trailer park, had about maybe 20 trailers in it on the, right on the, main highway on 71, which then was this pre-interstate, and 71 was the main
Oh,
road
yeah.
in
71B?
Northwest Arkansas at that time, and we, settled into this little trailer park, and it was the guy that owned it was a character. He was a professional welder. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
and
interesting.
yeah. He was from Ohio, and he was working in some welding shop, and he was cutting up 55-gallon drums for some reason, and one of the drums had some residue of a flammable liquid, and it exploded and hit him in the face and just messed up his face. He was just scarred, but, it's just a sweet man,
Aw.
and, my dad and him just hit it off.
Yeah.
They were just like 2 peas in a pod, and, they became our fast friends. We would get together with them and play cards and drink coffee and just have a good time with them, and they were our friends until they died young. They died before the man did. Anyway, the woman lived a little bit longer, but the man died, at probably, 60. This is just a really nice place to live. We had our trailer, and our trailer was down on the end of this row of trailers, so we had this big field out next to the house. I was 16, and I was a junior in
Okay.
high school. I was just because dad retired in, I believe, October of '63,
So you were
and,
halfway through your junior
and
year.
I was halfway. I was, not quite halfway, but getting there.
Mhm.
I had to leave my comfortable, wonderful life in Wisconsin and go down to Springdale High School that had, about 1,000 kids.
Wow.
Part of the classes were across the road. You had to cross Elm
Mhm.
Drive. The gym and some of the classes were on the other side of the road, and, the school was, uh
Okay.
after coming from Wisconsin, where I was college prep and going to Springdale, Arkansas was very traumatic, very
Culture
depressing.
shock, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a culture shock because I had gone through coming from Georgia going to Wisconsin. I was harassed for being this rebel Southern boomer. Then I'm going from Wisconsin to Arkansas, and I was this smart alecky Yankee. I
And
talked
when?
funny. Yeah, because when I was down and came from Georgia, I talked like this, and I go
Yeah.
from Wisconsin, I talk like this, Wisconsin, and it's hard. The hard uh, accent from the upper Midwest is not. It's not like the South at all. It's very crisp, hard edged. Uh,
Yeah.
Almost like German accent, and, they harassed me for that, but I sort of blended in. I smoked cigarettes, so I would go out into the smoking area outside the, shop. They had a, area out there where we go out and smoke cigarettes, but, the other guys are out there were all kinda hardcore Arkies, and they would give me a bunch of crap and got in a couple of fights out there, and I don't know why I continued that habit in spite of having to go outside. Anyway, yeah, it was very the people were very clannish and very, culturally isolated from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
They had their little, Northwest Arkansas thing going on there. They weren't it was a tiny town. Springdale only had about, 6,500 people in it, and they weren't close to any big cities. The closest big city was, I guess, Joplin, and it was 50 miles away,
That
and
is not even a
Fayetteville
big
all
city.
those all those cities, Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, they're all little tiny places. And,
Mhm.
even Fayetteville with the University of Arkansas only had about 25,000 people, and so they were just kinda
Mhm.
isolated up there, and that's one reason they were so anti-black is because they could be and not be ostracized for it. And plus, it's 1963, they hadn't
Yeah.
passed the civil rights, and Kennedy was still alive, yeah, and, it was, yeah, a different world.
Was a different
Uh,
world.
yeah, and I can remember that I was in November of '63 when Kennedy was shot. I was in the chemistry lab at the high school, and I was
Mm.
still brand new and been there for a little bit. And they came over the intercom and said that President Kennedy had been shot in Dallas, and
Wow.
everybody just freaked out. And then when they found out he was
Yeah.
dead, they freaked out even more. And, I think if I remember right, they canceled the rest of the day, school. Just load everybody up on a bus, go home,
Go
we're
home.
done. And,
Mm.
'cause that was a big deal back then. Nobody that was the
Yeah.
first president that had died in office since, Roosevelt, and, Roosevelt died a natural death, and this was an
Yeah.
assassination. The last assassination was McKinley back in, like,
Mhm.
1895 or so. A big deal that a president would be shot, killed in office. So, yeah,
Mhm.
everything shut down and people were
It was
just distraught.
great.
Yeah, it was a bad time.
How did you feel
Uh,
about it? Like, what were your emotions towards it?
well,
What was
I had back then they had this one group of people that had put out a record album. They were making fun of the Kennedys, their accents, and Jackie Kennedy and Bobby
Mhm.
Kennedy, and they had this record making fun of the way they talked, which had that strange Boston accent. It was different. I mean, he said like Africa and Cuba, and, it just was different, and people
Yeah.
just jumped on it, and Kennedy had a good sense of humor. He was, a a fairly good president. He weathered the Cuban Missile Crisis and some other things, that would have maybe, come out different if it hadn't been for him. Uh, he, uh, he was very popular. He was a young president,
He was very
2,
popular president.
young children. Uh
Young wife.
and a beautiful young wife, and he was a good-looking man, war hero,
Mhm. Yeah.
a bunch of medals from World War II, and was quite a guy. And to have him just suddenly taken away like that, and to have Johnson coming in there to take his place, It was
Johnson was a
bad,
lot. Well, I
pretty
tell you
bad.
what, I've watched a couple documentaries on that guy, and he was, whoo,
Yeah,
he had
Johnson was a clown.
he
That's the
was
only way I can.
crude. He was a crude man.
He was not a good president, and he
He was
had these,
very
he just thought he was, and being from Texas and
oh,
has
yeah.
spent years and years in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. The only reason that he was picked to be vice president was because Kennedy needed the Southern vote. Because the Southerners back then, those days, back in this is 1960 when he was elected, and back in those days, the South voted as a block. They all voted exactly the same way because they were all Democrats
Oh,
and
okay,
they all
yeah.
voted for everything in a block. And so if you got a running mate that was a Southerner and was sort of well liked down there, then they would block vote.
Mhm.
Boom, whatever you wanted. Boom, block vote. And so he got Johnson, and that gave him the Southern vote, and he was able to be elected and beat Nixon. And but Johnson was bad, bad
I
news.
watched a couple of things on him, and he was the best word I can use for him is very crude. He just I can't really say what he would do because I'll get monetized, but the
Yeah,
like, he definitely liked to, show off a certain thing on his body.
yeah.
That's
Well,
all I can say.
he's just, seems to be a hallmark of Texas politicians is they do have a tendency to be boisterous, loud, people
Yep.
that, have their own interest in mind a lot of times, and, yeah, and Johnson, I could go into
There's yeah,
some of
there's
these
nothing
things with
wrong with that, but he was a
him and
big
Lady Bird
personality.
as his wife or Lady Bird Johnson. I could spend an hour talking about them, but we'll just say that he was not what the country needed at that time because he was the
Yeah.
one. Kennedy was just barely dipping his toe in the water in Vietnam, and I don't.
Yeah,
If
that's
he would have lived, there would
getting
have been
him
no
started.
Vietnam War because he would have negotiated out of it, or he would have just had like a skeletal force over there. He would have never. But Johnson got in there and immediately started sending troops over and sent over tens of. By the time he was in office, there was hundreds of thousands of men in Vietnam, and we weren't winning the war because we weren't fighting it the way it should have been fought. They should have, the generals should have been allowed to fight the war, and they weren't. The politicians were fighting the war. They were telling
That's
the
not good.
general what to do. And
Mm,
if you're going to win a war, you don't tell the military how to win the war.
no.
You have to unleash the
You have
military.
to let them do what they
And
know how to do.
that's what they did in World War II. That's exactly what they did. They said, "Go take Germany. Take Germany, take Japan,
They did.
period. We'll see you later." And the military was totally given carte blanche to wipe out the enemies of America. And
Yeah.
every war after that's been like a proxy war. Vietnam was a proxy war. Where they had, I don't know why I'm going into this. They had anyway.
Well, gonna get
They
into it
did
eventually, so
yeah, they did, aerial photographs of Haiphong Harbor, which is the main harbor in North Vietnam, and it was full of ships from East Germany and Russian, Chinese, every communist country in the freaking world was in there supplying North Vietnam with whatever they wanted, and they weren't in. They never put their butt in there. They had no skin in the game, but they were supplying those who had skin in the game, and that's why it lasted
yeah.
for as long as it did for
Mm,
10 years. And yeah, uh,
that's crazy.
it was just anyway. Getting away from that, I'm going to get back to my life.
Back to Arkansas. Back to
Yeah,
Arkansas.
that's legal, and
So,
I could go on and on, yes.
well, we'll
I'm kind of a
eventually be
historian, so I know a lot of the
well,
ins and outs, and,
absolutely.
it's just a crazy, crazy time,
Well,
and,
not only are you a historian, but you lived in history. You
true.
lived history,
Yeah,
which is wild. A lot of
yeah,
people don't realize that about the people from from your time is that
The
you guys
boomers.
lived
The
yep, the
boomers.
boomers lived through history. You guys saw it, all the big, huge changes that happened in America
I
and the world.
I saw the birth of rock and roll.
That's right, you did?
Did I tell you did we I think I did. I'm gonna regress a little bit. Did I
Okay.
tell the story about Ronnie Floyd, our neighbor in Georgia? 1958, I'm pretty sure that's when this all took place, and we were living in Georgia. Might have been earlier. Might have been 56. Anyway, we're living in Georgia, and we had a neighbor that had our. This was in a new trailer, 10 by 46, and we were over, and there was a bunch of small trailers, like maybe 30 footers, maybe smaller. They were all lined up on this one side, and they had a bunch of young families over there, Air Force guys. And one day, I think it was like a Sunday, and Dad was
Okay.
home and he gets this knock on the door, and here's Ronnie Floyd, and Ronnie is distraught. I mean, he is just crying and oh, he's dead. Dad said, "Who's dead?" "The Big Bopper and Buddy Holly." Dad goes,
Whoa!
"Who is that?" He said, "You know, they're like wonderful. They're rock stars, and well, I loved them, and now they're dead." Dad says, "I have no idea who you're talking about." And I don't know when you we were beating on my door and crying about some guy that you didn't even know him. He was some rock and roll guy. Yeah, but I loved him. He was my hero. Okay. Thank you, Ronnie. We'll see you around, dude.
Have a good night.
Have a good life,
Good night.
he was it's just like these two totally different people from a two different worlds, and Ronnie Floyd's all like, just a rock and roll, and Dad, he listened to Lawrence Welk, he doesn't know anything about rock and roll.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean,
gonna say,
he
he
had a
was
record player,
probably
but
into,
we
like,
didn't have any no rock records. It was all Lawrence Welk, Guy Lombardo, Lynn Miller, all that
yeah,
stuff.
this is a big
And this
one.
guy was just he was tore
Oh,
up. 'Cause
oh, poor
yeah.
Ronnie, poor Ronnie.
No, yeah, it was hilarious. Getting on to okay, we're on our way down
So
to
you guys settle
Arkansas,
into
and
Springdale.
Dad's looking, and it was kind of weird because I can go back there and I can see places that we went to visit. The realtor, either the realtor took us in or we went and knocked on a door of these places all over Northwest Arkansas, trying to find a place to live. Because I think Dad was tired of living in the trailer. He wanted to move into a house, and he's just looking around for a piece of land or something. So he finally bought. He finally. I went to school, Springdale, blah blah blah, and he bought a piece. He bought 3 acres outside of Springdale, out by a little lake called Elmdale Lake, and
Oh, okay, I know where that's at.
he bought, and it was a weird piece of land. It had a creek running through it, and it
Mm,
was had the bottom down on the bottom of this hill, and then it had the other up on top of the hill. And Dad, being smart, he wasn't going to build down in that valley because he knew it would flood out down there along the creek. They got a good rain, it flooded that whole, but it had good dirt down there because the silt coming off the creek, and it had people had used it for a dump. And there was a bridge
oh,
across this
no.
creek. There was a road that came up, and you come up the road, and then it made a sharp 90-degree turn and went across this bridge. Anyway, underneath the bridge was hundreds and hundreds of beer bottles and beer cans and dirty diaper,
The heck?
just all this trash. And so Dad's first thing we did, we got a couple of garbage bags, went down there and started picking all this stuff up, got all that stuff up.
God.
And then Dad says, we need to clean out this river valley or this creek bed. So we went down, and there were vines growing in these trees that were as big as my leg. I mean, they were huge grapevines. We went up and pulled them out of the trees, cut them up with a chainsaw, and done a bunch of brush hog stuff. And Dad got a little tractor, and we were brush hogging, had a little sickle bar mower on it. We were brush hogging. And then he said, "Oh, we're going to put in a fence." And so the land went from the creek, it went south for probably about 100 yards, maybe a little less. He wanted to put a fence along that would be the western side of the land. And I know anything about Arkansas. You go down about 6 inches and you're into rock.
Good old
And so dad goes and he bought a what we call an Arkansas toothpick. Is a big old chunky iron bar with with a chisel on one end and a knob on the other end. And we started busting up this rock so we get fence posts in there.
okay.
And I'm not sure if this is a memory that is right or whether I'm got maybe a twisted thing, but I can remember Dad went and got what they call a blast shield, which is a real heavy fiberglass, and I guess it has it's just solid. It's like an armored vest basically, but it's like 6 feet by 6 feet, and you pin it down over if you're going to blow something up. You pin down the corners and then stick your dynamite or whatever underneath there, and when it goes off, it just boom. It just raises it up a little
Okay.
bit
Okay.
and doesn't spread debris everywhere. And
Yeah.
dad started blowing these holes with dynamite. He used a quarter stick of dynamite, and he started blowing these holes for the fence post.
So
And
he actually had, like, dynamite?
sure, yeah, you could get it at the hardware store back then. I mean, no big deal.
Oh, just casual dynamite at the hardware store. That's crazy.
That's how Arkies go fishing. Hey, I'll tell you a joke. I'll tell you a joke. There's a joke about this Arkie. He's out in a rowboat with his dad, and his dad throws a stick of dynamite in the creek, and it went off, and all these fish floated up. He goes over and picks them up, and his son just sitting there looking. He's like, his dad's crazy or something. And his dad looks at him and says, "Here, hold this." And he gives him a stick of dynamite with a fuse burning. He says, "Throw it out in the water." And so he says, "Well, don't just stand there. Either fish or cut bait."
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, we got the fence post in, got the fence built, and then we started picking up rocks. And Dad he wanted to farm. He wanted to farm this little patch.
Yeah.
And so we started picking up rock, and we ended up with a rock pile the size of a Volkswagen in the middle of that land. There were rocks
Yay.
ever friggin' place. It was
Oh, yeah.
crazy. I never
Very
seen
rock.
so many rocks. Then Dad goes up on top of the hill, and he's going to put the trailer up there or build a house or something. He goes up there and he hires this well driller, and the well driller comes in and he says, "Y'all witch this first?" Dad says, "Witch?" He says, "Yeah, you got to witch this well." Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to drill unless you witch it. Dad says, "Okay." This guy goes out and he cuts there was a bunch of cherry trees growing on the. So he goes out and he cuts a fork of a cherry tree, and he goes out and he walks across the property, and all of a sudden this cherry tree branch goes down, and it goes so powerful that it peels the bark off of the cherry tree, off the cherry branch. And he says, "That's your well." Dad goes, "Whoa."
Whoa.
They brought their drilling rig in, and they hit water at about 40 feet. And
Wow.
that was right about the distance, about how high the hill was, about 40 feet high. And that's where they hit water, is right as it went down into the level of the creek. And then I think he went another 20 feet or so to get a head of water, and he had a really great well, nice, fresh, clean water, just
Hey, that cherry
cold
tree
and
knew.
burbling. And
That cherry tree knew. It was like,
that's
"Here,
right. That's
here's your
right.
water.
They
I
call it
want that water
dowsing.
so bad, I'll tear the bark right off this branch."
That's right. They call it dowsing some places, but there in Arkansas, it's witching. You witching water. Anyway,
Never
Dad
seen that happen
never
before.
built anything. We went up there. We had a little. Let's see, what kind was it? That tractor, and it wasn't international. It might have been international harvester, but it was a little small tractor.
Okay.
And we went up there and we brush hogged the whole top of that hill, because there's about 2 acres on top of the hill, and brush hogged that all out. And I spent my summer between my junior and senior years out there brush hogging, and also Dad bought a chicken house, and so there's like a
Like a
about
long
an
chicken house?
80-foot long chicken house, wooden
Oh, wow.
chicken house, and Dad's set to pull every nail out of this building. And so I spent a bunch of my summer up there. There's this tool that is specifically for pulling nails. It's like a slide hammer and a claw, like on a claw hammer, and you
Okay.
can pull nails with this thing. And I pull nails and pull, and even save the nails. I'm going, God, what the heck? So they got all these
Told me about that as
nails
a kid.
pulled out of this chicken house, and and then he took the wood, and he had at that time he had bought another place. He sold the 3 acres and had bought a house out in another part of Springdale, and he moved the wood out there, and eventually built a garage with it. I mean, the guy
Yeah.
was a he was my dad was a master carpenter. I mean, he was
Yeah, he's
incredible carpenter. That's all he
that's
didn't
awesome.
have. That's back before they had all the air tools and all that. There was a hammer and this handsaw and a hammer. He'd go out there and he'd do it, because
His dad was a
his
master
father
carpenter.
was a great carpenter. He was a Yeah, he was from back in the early 1900s. He built a big chunk of Colorado Springs, Manitou
Yeah.
Springs, and Colorado Springs. He built a big chunk of that, and did some other construction work around. Dad helped him or something and picked up the trade, and he was a good carpenter. Yeah, and he built that garage. I bet that garage is still there. That thing was like a tank. It was well built. Anyway, that was his two things: was farming it, or trying to get that farm going on that 3 acres, and then buying his house. He bought that later on. In the late spring or summer. And I spent a lot of time doing that, and helping out Dad. And I don't think he ever paid me. He
Probably
fed me
not
and put a roof over my head and fed me, and that was enough for him. I had some other odd jobs. I remember when I got into Arkansas, the first hourly wage job, I had to get a Social Security card to work this job. It was a dishwasher in a little restaurant on Highway 71 in Springdale. I think the
Ah.
last time I was there, the building was still there, but I think it was an insurance office or something. It wasn't a
Hmm.
restaurant anymore. And I went in there, and I was washing dishes for 50 cents an hour.
Wow.
50 cents. It's in like
Real money maker there.
1963, 64, something like that. And I worked there about 2 weeks, and there was a busboy who hated my guts. I don't know why. He absolutely hated me, and
Gee.
he let me know that he hated me. He did everything he could to make my life miserable. And so I was out one day. I went out in the back to have a cigarette that they're smoking. He came out and started mouthing off, and then he punched me in the freaking nose, and gave me a bloody nose. And I said, "This is not," tears coming, like he hit the nose.
Did you go
You
after him?
cry. And so I cleaned up
Beat
a
him
little
up?
bit, went back in there, washing dishes, and trying to keep the blood from dripping into the water too much. And I said, "This is not going to stand." About 2, 3 days later, I got this big ladle. I mean, this thing was for a restaurant. The bowl of the ladle was probably the size of a softball, and a big long handle on it. And I grabbed that and went out the back, and just stayed out because he would come out smoking in the back too. And
Yeah.
he came out, and I hit him with that ladle, laid him out. And then I went in and I told the cashier was he was like the manager. I said,
Okay.
I quit. He said, "What?" "Yeah, I quit." I said, "Oh, by the way, Frank's laying out in the back there. He slipped and fell." And put my coat
Just
on and
from
left.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
that
Laid
was
out by
what a
ladle.
yeah, what a mess. And,
That's
oh, by the
true.
way, the first day I was in Arkansas in high school,
Okay.
I went out and I, uh, asked around, said, "Well, I'm a smoker. Where do I go to have a cigarette?" Sit out there, but just go down the hall here, and then just when you get past the drafting, classroom, you just take a left, and it's out there by the wood shop. Well, okay. So I went out there, and I hadn't been out there about 5 minutes. This other guy comes, that big redheaded guy. I think he's dead now. But anyway, Frank Macon or Fred or Frank Macon. And
Okay.
Macon comes out, and he looks at me and he goes, "You're that new boy, ain't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I am. I haven't been here but a couple of days. You want to fight?"
What the heck? Who is this place wants to
No.
fight you?
You got me by about 50 pounds. I get beat to crap. No, I don't want to fight you. Yeah, what a place. And I will be right now, before we get too much into Arkansas, I will state that I hated the Razorbacks. I thought it was a joke. I came from the Badgers country in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Badgers, and the Green Bay Packers from Wisconsin. And I go down here to the hillbilly capital of the world, and they're all doing the Razorbacks. I'm going, what the heck? What's a Razorback? And it comes
Always.
out as a pig. I said, your mascot is a pig? Whew, you know, people eat pigs. What's your logo? A ham or a slice of bacon? I mean, come on. I just, and then the radio station in Fayetteville was KHOG. And oh man, this is nuts. People are eating up with this Razorback stuff. And
Way into it.
I didn't ever go to a Razorback game of any kind. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I never bought a Razorback t-shirt or a sweatshirt or a hat or a Christmas decoration or nothing. Nothing ever with a Razorback on it. No, not ever. I still like, guess what? Here, the SEC,
Mhm.
Razorbacks in the Southern Conference, Southeastern Conference of football, you know where they're standing this year? They're dead freaking last. There. They're they haven't won a game.
Oh, that's funny. You're like, at the bare bottom where you belong.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, they
That's
just
funny.
it's a miserable team. They can't.
Oh,
They get up into where they get into the playoffs, and every time they lose, they get eliminated in the first round or second round.
yeah, they
They're
definitely not
they're
a very
pathetic, and they
successful
always
team.
have been pathetic. That just kinda
You're like,
goes
I
along.
stand.
Wisconsin's been to the Rose Bowl numerous times. They're a incredible, and it's an incredible school, an incredible
Yeah.
football team. They get those old German farm boys, and they kick butt on everybody. Yeah. But Arkansas, oh, it's just
Well, when you
I
have
I
guys like
can't take it.
Frank and that busboy, you just
Yeah.
not gonna have very much success. A little flat. No!
Yeah,
What
yeah,
fight?
some people, like even yourself, Kelly, you grew up there. I'm not sure if you have an Arkansas sweatshirt or a
No.
couple of,
I have a shirt.
maybe some glasses or something from, some with Razorbacks on them, and, that's you kinda have that spirit of Arkansas, I guess. I don't know what it is, but not me.
Yes, I grew up there.
No,
That's
nope.
You
You
hated
could
it there, I know.
Well, hate is a mild word. It was beyond hate.
Entirely.
It was detestable. It was incredible. It was the most I could and I didn't even have try to have any friends there. I mean, I had as far as the locals, I didn't really make an effort to to have a lot of local friends. My friends were like me. They were transient. They were they come from another place, and like I had Al Brooks, a great friend. His family were like they were like migrant farm workers, and he's very intelligent, very. And I still have contact with Al Brooks. He's living in South
Really?
Carolina, but I've found him again, and we've renewed our friendship. And there was another had another guy, Alan. What was his last name? It's terrible. Anyway, he's gone. He was in the Marines. He got killed in Vietnam, and yeah, and then a couple other guys. Not
People are your
a guy
friends.
named sort of a local. He'd been there for a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 years. He came from Oklahoma, and
Okay.
I saw him when I went to the my 50th reunion. It's kind of a funny story. I went to 50th reunion and saw, and I was walking around and kind of seeing who was there. And I saw Bob Reed. I said, "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" Blah blah blah. And oh yeah, I'm doing fine. Yeah, yeah, things are good. And I said, you know, I remember you used to run around with this guy when we were in high school. What was his name? And I knew his name then, but I can't think of it now. Anyways, and I wouldn't want to mention it anyways. He might be listening. And and I said, "Where's so and so? Your running mate?" He said, "Standing right here." I mean, he was right there, like shoulder to shoulder, and I
Oh my
couldn't
god.
believe it because he was when he was in high school, he was beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
he had the hair, and the women loved him. He was like a movie star. And now here's this little guy, no hair, scraggly beard,
Yeah.
and 50 years older. I did not recognize him
Didn't even know who
right
the guy
off.
was.
But then I
Much
looked,
like,
I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, your eyes, it's you."
was he impressed?
But that's the only thing you could see on him was his eyes. And everything else was totally blown away, either
Yeah.
covered with hair or no hair on
Oh
his head.
my god.
And he was a lot shorter than I remember him too.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
Life has
but
warned.
they were some of the kind of like the actors that I kind of got to know in high school. For the most part, I only spent a little over a year, like a year and 4 months, 5 months there.
Yeah, you
So
didn't stay
I didn't
that
really
long
get to
there.
know anybody. All these people, I'm getting this. There's one woman that runs a website that tracks the class of '65, which is when I
Oh,
graduated. She tracks it and keeps track of the people who are dying and everything. And she does a reunion. Yeah, they're dying, and I don't know 'em.
yeah.
I get my yearbook out.
I have no
Even when I get
idea.
my yearbook out and I find your picture, I go, "I never knew that person."
Don't remember.
Anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was a weird time in my life, probably the weirdest of all, and, that I had of course, I had a little problem coming up from Georgia to Wisconsin, but going from Wisconsin to Arkansas was 10 times worse because I was older and I had such a I guess a bright future in Wisconsin. And I got to Arkansas and it all died.
it's all
I
gone.
gave up. I gave up. I got I made it. I graduated, but I was not happy. And they didn't have none of the like all these when I was in East Side High, they had these huge labs where we go in and do physics and chemistry and biology and stuff. And they had like in Arkansas, they had this one little freaking room with a couple of tables, and that was it. Very
Oh,
primitive
that's
and they'd
heartbreaking.
have we had chemicals and there in the East Side High, we had a huge chemical inventory. You could do about
Yeah.
any chemical or physics or biology experiment you could think of. It was a college level, like,
Yeah.
and Springdale was they were poor. It was a, poor school and they didn't have a lot of money to mess around. I understood that, but, it deflated me. I was distraught, and one side thing is I had a friend up there in Wisconsin, and he was a Mennonite kid and just a
Oh.
really nice guy. And we were great friends. And he said, and he found out I was going to have to move. And he said, Chuck, he said, if you want to stay in Wisconsin, you can come live with me. We have a spare bedroom, and you can live with me until you graduate from high school.
Oh,
Even beyond that, if you want to go to college or whatever, you're welcome to stay in my house. And I said, "Oh man, that's amazing. I love that." And we stayed friends even though I moved to Northern Madison, and he stayed down
yeah.
in Southern Madison with the Mennonites. We would call each other from time to time and just catch
Mhm.
up on each other, and he found out I was leaving, and he said, "Oh, man, I don't wanna lose you. Said, you can stay with
Yeah,
me."
you're buddy.
And I said, "Oh, that yeah, I'm gonna talk to my dad and see if I can." No. Dad said, "Absolutely not. You're going with me. We're a
You're going
family,
to
and
Arkansas.
you're not staying here with somebody I don't even know." Well, you can get to know them.
Yeah,
They're
you can
friendly.
get to know
They're
them.
really nice. They're friendly, you know? Yeah,
Man, come on. Well,
it was,
dad's being lame.
yeah, so I could have stayed, and of course, I'm not sure how I would have done it because that part of Madison was for Central High, and I was up in Eastern High, so I would have had to commute some way. But that in Wisconsin, in Madison, you go on a bus, pay a dime,
Mhm.
and then get a transfer, and you could ride hundreds of miles. I think they had great city buses there. I could have easily commuted, and
Easily.
yeah. 'Cause I rode the bus in a lot into downtown Wisconsin or Madison from when I lived down in Southern, Madison. I used to ride the bus up to the Capitol Square, went past the University of Ark Wisconsin, and, to get to the Capitol building. Campus is,
Oh,
like, on the south of the Capitol, so I would have easily been able to live there, and I just in retrospect, I should have just said, "No, I'm not moving, not moving,
I'm staying
not going
here.
there, not going anywhere. I'm staying here. This is my home. I'm a Swedish German. This is perfect for me. I look like
Right.
everybody, and this is and I have family that was here, Black Earth. I mean, come on. This is home."
That's tragic. Well, that's
The old thing like, "Woulda, coulda, shoulda,"
woulda,
but,
coulda, shoulda.
yeah, I didn't. The woulda,
So,
coulda, shoulda worked against me in this case.
yep, I did, but we're down in Arkansas now, and after Arkansas comes quite an adventure of your life. So, I know
Yeah,
we
I
have to get
got
through the Arkansas part, but
yeah,
we're just about ready to step into Vietnam and your adventures around the world.
yeah.
But I did, before we finish up for the day, I did have a quick fun question that I wanted to ask you to wrap everything up. So the question is, what did you dream of becoming when you were a teenager? And did you have a specific career or goal in mind? What was your dream?
Well, I kinda like, I said, it shifted when I was a young teenager and I was in college prep and, there in Wisconsin, right in perfect place for somebody that was going that route. Yeah, I was in that program and I thought I kinda seriously thought about going into physics. I really love physics, and the math was kind of, a little confounding, but, I knew I could get over that and get into
Yeah.
physics and have that for a career. And then as I got older and, Vietnam started cranking up a little bit, I kinda felt the urge to, because my dad, my grandfather, all my uncles and everything all were in the military, and I kinda felt like we're fighting the communists. We don't want the communists to take over. So I
Hmm.
maybe you need to go in the military and be, to fight against these commies, you know. And
Yeah.
so then at 17 I joined the National Guard, and I think with the back of my mind I was gonna go to college and be in the National Guard, but I think in the back of my mind I knew I was gonna go to Vietnam. I knew I had to go over there and, like we used to say, "Kill some commies for Christ."
I love that. Kills the comics for Christ. Gonna go in and take him out because they're all
That's
going to
right.
hell.
"Chew on this, you daggum commie."
Chew on. Did you ever say that as you were shooting your machine gun?
No,
No.
no,
Very focused.
I was
Very
too
trying not to
scared.
die.
I was too scared. Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause, unfortunately, I might have been shooting them, but they were shooting back at me, so it
Yeah.
wasn't like cowboys and Indians anymore. This is serious
No.
stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
this is machine guns to machine guns, so that was pretty crazy stuff, so but that was just a
Yep.
fun question that I wanted to ask about, what you wanted to be when you were a teenager. What do you wanna be when you grow up, Dad? Now.
Now,
Yeah,
I
that's like
wanna
the
be
joke is like when you're
no,
like 90 and they're like
okay, this seriously now, I want to be the oldest ex-Coast Guardsman on pension. I wanna be making so much money off my pension because 'cause Imma be like 120 years old
That's
that
right.
my pension will be a line item budget in the Coast Guard's budget. They will have to consider how much money we're gonna have to allocate to pay this crazy old warrant officer his retirement.
This retired because you're not ex Coast Guard, you're retired Coast Guard. We're gonna pay this retired Coast Guard officer.
Yeah.
He's expensive, and now we have a budget for him. Alone! Hey, we're gonna have to
I
check
would
this
just I
guy
would just
out. He's
like I
too
would like to
expensive.
be I would like to be, financially set enough to where Emily, my dear wife, will never have to worry about money again as long as she lives.
There you go.
And because I doubt that I will outlive her since she's younger than me. She's taken care of herself her whole life, and
Yeah.
I have been astrayed for years and years, was not taking care of myself, and it's probably why I got heart problems. But
Yeah, it's
whatever.
also just it runs in the family, so
Yeah,
you also have
that's
genetic.
true. It's not all my fault. It's not my
It's not
fault.
all your fault, Dad.
Oh,
It's
no,
not
I
all your
didn't do
fault.
that.
No,
I got
you didn't.
that's how you gotta think. You gotta think, "Oh, it's not my fault.
Yeah,
Not my fault."
it's not your fault. Your dad passed away from heart failure, your mom passed away from a heart attack. Like, come on. Your grandmother did. I mean, come on, genetics. The smoking might have had a little bit to do
Yeah,
with it too, so
the whole family, all my half brothers and my mom, yeah,
even your
yeah,
son, even our
but
even our brother Travis, he had heart
yeah,
problems.
but Emily is she's she's gonna
She's very
be living a
relatively
long
healthy.
time.
Yeah,
Mm,
she takes pretty good care of herself. She does a good job.
yeah,
She eats very everything's homemade and homegrown, so she does
and
really good with that.
she never smoked or drank.
No, she hasn't. Well, let's go ahead and call it a day. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please share with your family and friends our little podcasting here. We do love to chit chat and just share stories. Please join us next week, and we hope you're all safe out there. And we'll see you next week.